Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, this is another long overdue video. I want to talk a little bit about All for One Regime Diabolique. And this is a game, if you've watched my channel, you may or may not know that I've been involved in this long, ongoing, slow-moving campaign of that as I play with Runeslinger and JDRD30, and we used to have Null Inquisitor as a member of our group as well. It's a rotating GM game, so one person runs it and then we pass the baton and go on with that. And it's been a lot of fun, and we've had some really compelling characters come out of that, and a really compelling scenario emerge. But I want to talk about the game just a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go into tons of detail about it. It is a game of supernatural, swashbuckling horror. You are playing the King's Musketeers in 30 Years' War France. It was actually written or produced in 2010. And actually, I was opening up the cover while I was preparing to make a video about this book because I wanted to get the date right, and I see Ron Blessing's name in there as he was a lead editor. So I texted him. I was like, "Dude, were you really the editor on that?" And he was like, "Yeah." So oh, that's you. Pretty cool. So Ron's a great guy. I think he's going to be starting a new podcast if he hasn't already, called Gamer the Blathering. So we'll see what's going on with that. But I just had a brief chat with him like a second ago before I started this video. But it's written by Paul Wiggy Wade Williams of Triple Ace Games, and it's based on, or uses rather, the Ubiquity system that Jeff Combos created for Hollow Earth Expedition, which he has also licensed to other people. I've talked a lot about Ubiquity. If you want to know more about the Ubiquity system and how it works, you can see some videos on my channel. You can see a whole slew of videos on Runeslinger's channel. It's a great, really elegant game system, so I'm not going to talk about that very much, except it does a really good job of, of running a game. I like it. It's a very pulpy system. It's not the most super heroic, but it enables you to have kind of like a pulpy feel. So I really dig that system. It is a setting that was not my first choice. It wasn't something that really jumped out at me. I only read The Three Musketeers for real in book form. When we first started playing this game, I'd seen some of the movies, but it wasn't a setting that I was really, jazzed up about. 30 Years' War, France, and the Musketeers. It's not something I knew a ton about, but I wanted to play with those guys, and so I decided, let me go ahead and start playing this game with them, and I'm glad I did. It is a game, this is mostly what I want to talk about is more the vibe of the game. Then there is some supernatural elements, so essentially you are musketeers, but there are vampires and werewolves and other demonic forces involved in the world of Paris. They actually just released another thing called Satan's Playground, I think, Satan's Kingdom, Satan's Playground, whatever. I backed it. I'm going to make a review of it because I've already got the PDF. I haven't got the hard copy yet, but that's an excellent product as well. They have some other expansions like Richelieu's Guides for this, that, and the other thing. Paris Gothique, great stuff. But anyhow, I'm not going to talk about all that. Although all the supplements are like phenomenal. But I want to talk more about the flavor of the game and having played the game. What's really kind of jumped out at me, because I've had some discussions with the other players, and there's a certain amount of camaraderie and brotherhood that shows up in this game that's very compelling. These musketeers develop some fairly strong relationships with each other, and I've really enjoyed that. So there's a big difference between being part of a group and being a maverick. And there's plenty of role-playing games where you can play a maverick, and this is not one of them. This is where that really doesn't work. It works much better, and it feels much better when you're actually part of a group. And I've enjoyed that element of the game. And the other part of it, though, is let me see. I wrote myself a little note here, or actually, this is actually not even a note. This is part of a discussion that I had with Anthony, as a matter of fact, as I'm looking up. It's an interesting juxtaposition that this game presents here, and that really started to occur to me more and more. The popular movie representations of the Musketeers have them being kind of larger than life, and there are some extra rules in All for One Regime Diabolique in dealing with the serious situations, dealing with blade fodder rules, where the Musketeers are kind of a cut above normal people. The characters are a little bit more powerful in combat situations than they would be in something like Hollow Earth Expedition, because there are essentially mook rules when it boils down to it. And that also paints the picture of some very competent protagonists. It is not the most super heroic game ever. It does not, it's not 7th Sea First Edition. It's not Fate. The characters are still human. They're just a cut above average. The situation they're up against is much bigger than them. You know, the 30 Years' War is just so gigantic that they are, you know, it's beyond their ability to overcome as musketeers. And now throw in this supernatural horror. I don't want to give away part of I don't want to spoil the game, but there's elements in the game that are much, much bigger than the protagonists or the musketeers. You know, some of the supernatural creatures are just very, very difficult and TPK machines almost. But there are other elements in the backdrop that are completely beyond the ability of the characters to overcome. You know, they're up against things that are much, much bigger than they are. But it gives you this picture of just how small these competent characters are when compared to everything that's going on. The 30 Years' War and then the supernatural stuff as well. And, you know, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this game was kind of like a model for life. You know, we're powerless as human beings against most of what happens in the world. But we can be men of honor, men and women of honor, and we can make a difference in our small corner of the world. You know, how we choose to behave, what values we choose to uphold, they determine the effect that we have on the world around us. And you know, we can ask ourselves the question: is it better to die with honor or to shrink in the background? You know, and I thought this was a great allegory, you know, for life. How do I operate, you know, in the world? And so stepping into the shoes of a musketeer really gives me a kind of a clear distillation of like how I like or I prefer to live my life, because I know I can't affect the big giant world around me. I can only have a small effect. I'm just one man. But I can choose to live according to my values and affect my one little corner of the world, make a difference here. And that's what these musketeers can do as well. They're up against things that are much, much bigger than they are. They band together, they have values, they have honor, and they can make a difference in Paris. And that's one of the reasons I've really learned to love this game, and why I found it so compelling, and why I encourage you to give it a try. You're not going to defeat, you know, the big bad demonic forces, but you can make a difference, and you can be men of honor. You can be the King's Musketeers, and you can say all for one, one for all, and mean it. And that's what's really compelling about this game, and why I continue to go back to it again and again, and you know, can't wait for our next sessions, because it has that kind of visceral and emotional impact. So anyhow, that's why All for One Regime Diabolique.